Did you see my catch on the sidelines?
You know what, I did, but I also saw you yawn over there, and I saw you didn't hustle, so I didn't know whether I was going to
get up
You
the
can't
field.
do one and not the other,
I
so.
didn't want to pull anything. I hadn't stretched.
We have a little bit of that out there.
It seemed like you were big on tempo today and trying to get them to get back up to speed after maybe tough day Saturday.
Yeah, we knew that going in, but then obviously you have a little change in the plans this morning, and anytime you change a routine up, you know, there's some things that happen. That's one of the reasons why we went to Elder a couple weeks ago, just to have these guys change up a routine, put them in a different atmosphere. We had a little bit of weather this morning, and we changed the normal routine, and kind of knew going into this last week that I thought we had to do a better job as coaches in making sure that our energy and emotions and things are up to make sure that they feed off of us too.
Is that why you got on me for not running?
That's exactly why, from the get-go. So, see, you started it. They saw some guys walking around, and you know, I mean, if we don't have the leaders we're looking for just yet, then we got to be it. And if we're not the ones to be able to show and be an example to it, then who is? You know, how are they going to learn?
How are some of your seniors responding to that? You know, your
they're
older
doing
guys.
a good job. There's a handful of guys that I'm really, really happy with. You know, but they got emotion, they got energy, they love to play the game. Now they got to be able to take that next step. And sometimes leaders got to be the guys that don't always say the things that everybody wants to hear. You know, and it means more coming from them. So we got to make sure that they hold guys to the standard of what they expect, and make sure they let guys know when they're not.
I'm sorry. What's the format of the spring game? I may have missed it, but I hear it's going to.
We didn't say yet, but it's going to be a game. I mean, we're actually tomorrow we're gonna draft teams. So we'll divide up the seniors and then let them and the coaches, not let them pick their coaches, and then we're gonna have them draft the team. So we'll try to help balance it out as best as possible. But I want to see, you know, what guys pick what guys, and you know, when you're going to go play for a win, you're not always going to pick your best friend. You're going to pick the guy that you trust and believe in. That can go out there and make plays.
Is that another aspect of making everything competitive?
As much as we possibly can. Not just competitive on the field, but competitive in there in the classroom, competitive in that room to see who's going to get drafted first and who's going to be, you know, sitting back there at the back. And you know, sometimes that's a great eye opener. It's your own buddies. You know, no disrespect to it, but hey, they might not trust you quite as much. You know, they love you off the field, but what kind of trust they have for you on the field?
Could you talk about your kicking game a little bit? How is Gantz doing?
Well, today's as positive of a day for him as I've seen, and I'm not even worried about where the ball goes just yet. You know, just to see his body language, to see his demeanor, to see his face as he gets up there, to see what kind of velocity he'll swing his leg with. I think he went for 6 today, 5 kicks today, and I saw a different velocity in his leg. I saw a different demeanor and a body language with some confidence in him that I haven't seen since I've been here. So I'm excited about that.
What about the punting? Sam's leaving, obviously.
Yeah.
What comes next?
So we sat down with Sam, and our philosophy and our mindset was coming in that, you know, we want to be able to move the punter and do some things and not just sit back there in the pocket all the time. And that's not something that Sam probably feels is comfortable doing, and even with his injuries in his knee, he doesn't feel like he can do a lot of that. So we've had this conversation since the beginning of spring, and we finally sat down this weekend with him and kind of talked it out and said this is the route we want to go, and you know, we kind of worked it out. We're gonna try to help him find a place that's going to be a little bit more traditional.
You have another guy lined up, I understand. Can you tell us who that is?
Yeah. I'm not sure. We allowed to,
Not cleared yet.
Not cleared yet. I thought it might be, but it's not quite yet. But yeah, we got somebody that we expect to be able to come in and challenge to take his spot.
As the quarterbacks get more comfortable with the new offensive scheme, are either of the guys, Ross or Hayden, standing out?
Well, I think if you saw it today, I think you saw Hayden. I think you saw him, you know, getting more comfortable in the pocket there. Obviously, better protection sometimes helps that. But you've seen a little bit more grasp of what's going on and where to look and where to go with the ball and making some better decisions. So I've seen a definite progression from him. You know, not saying that Ross hasn't done it too, but I think Hayden still has, you know, shown a little bit more when we come out here and we compete. But I think Saturday or Friday night's going to be a great tell to some things to see how they handle it. Hopefully we can put some people in the crowd and create some energy and put them in some situations where we're going to see how they can handle it.
So would you say going into Friday night, he's Hayden's the number one guy?
I'd say he might be leaning a little bit. But I evaluate not just on how they throw the ball, not just on, you know, how they come out here on the football field, but how they compete in meetings, how they handle the guys around, how they in the locker room. You know, there's some areas that a lot of those guys and all of us got to continue to grow and push our guys to grow in.
Malik Clemens has typically been practicing as one of your number one safeties. What stood out about him?
Malik continues to get better. I think just the discipline, the little fundamental things that you see, that he understands the game. Now he's just got to make sure when they get to those situations he can put it all together. I think he had the one Saturday, the very first play of the game, where he should be in the deep middle as a post player, and he gets caught staring down inside and trying to be too aggressive as a middle of field safety. So I mean, it's great to show. It's a great example, for us to continue to build and to teach off of. But he's definitely a guy that has some energy to him. He's a guy that's played the game. He tackles very well, and we're expecting big things out of him.
This team didn't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback last year, down near the bottom in sacks. As a defensive coach, what's your philosophy on that, the importance of doing it and how to do it?
Well, sometimes the number one most overrated stat in football can be sacks. And I don't mean that like we don't want to get sacks. D-line coaches go crazy. But the reality is sometimes you're all wired up to go have sacks, and everybody's running behind the quarterback, kind of like you saw today. Sometimes batted down balls and keeping a guy in a pocket is every bit as important as just coming free and making a sack. But with that being said, you got to create pressure. You got to be able to put the heat on the quarterback. If you can do it with 4, great. I've been at a place where we were fortunate enough with 4 guys to be able to put more heat on a quarterback than we could with 5 and 6 sometimes. Because they can go straight. So we're still developing and trying to figure out what it is for us that's best, but we know there's definitely, we got to find ways to put heat on quarterbacks.
Do you have any thoughts yet on how much you might have to blitz? Or?
No, I mean, I think that we'll be smart about it, but third down's a different animal. First and second down, there's some different things, and the game's changed too. I mean, nowadays, you're going to be blitzing all the time, and these guys are side adjusting and hot reads and RPOs and things. It can put you in some tough situations. So that's a balance to what we got to be able to do, as well as trying to figure out what we do well too.
Since Mike Boone has come back onto the field after being out, I guess, a little bit portion of the spring before spring break, what have you seen out of him, not only just on the field, but leadership-wise and taking on that kind of role?
Mike's one of our best leaders. I mean, he brings energy every single day. You can tell he loves the game of football. He's going to continue to play this game of football because he has a passion for it. And sometimes I hurt the offense and I hurt those guys because I'm grabbing him and pulling him out and saying, don't run him, give him 2 carries, give him 3 carries, get him out. Just because I know that Mike's going to be a big part of us having success come the fall, and we want to get him in there. We want to be able to let him get his feet wet and create some energy and some positivity to the offense. But we're also trying to be smart. But if you see him, he's the guy that even when he's not in, he's the first guy out there. He's the first guy cheering. He's the first guy that's picking up his teammates. And to me, that's what I look for in leaders.
How important is having senior leadership like that, especially when you're trying to establish a new program here? There's only so much leadership you can provide from the sideline. Some of that's got to come from these players.
Yeah, it's a never-ending process. It doesn't always just have to be seniors. Obviously your seniors got to play their best and they got to have their best year, and they got to make sure that they know what it's all about. But we got to get leadership from all around, and I think you're starting to see some of that even defensively. On offense, I think there are some senior guys that by nature, with Big Country and Mike Boone that just naturally, have been one of those guys. But now it's still us developing and making sure they understand what leaders have to do. Leaders aren't always just the guy that's the best friend and the guy that's rah-rah cheering. It's the guy that's also got to be honest with them. He's got to hold those guys in that locker room to a standard that he wants to. Not just a standard that everybody else sets for it. And his standard has got to be high. And if he can hold other guys to his standard, then we're going to create the culture we want to create.
We're good. Now, what do you think bringing in a face like Marvin Lewis does for the players when they see him on the sideline watching them practice?
I think everything here. I think with even the energy of it was the first time they'd practiced in the stadium. I think, and now they're hearing them. They didn't realize they hadn't played. These guys here haven't played a spring game in the stadium. So to see some energy around the program, whether it's Coach Lewis, I mean, that's great for all of us as coaches too. To see, hey, this is important. This means something to the community. This means something to everybody around here. And I think the guys are the same way. Whether it's Marvin Lewis, whether it's you guys coming out here to cover them, it's the people that are going to show up on Friday night. All those kinds of things generate. This is a game of emotion. They're still 18 to 22-year-olds. We pound on them and we beat on them and we push them and all those things, but they still, they love to see those things. They love the positivity to what football can bring, and all that we can do, I think, is awesome.
Did you ask him to come?
No. Actually, I've text messaged with them a few times, and they've had their meetings and they've had their draft stuff and owners meetings and things like that. And the reality is, this is something that's important. He's a guy of the community, and I would never do that. It's like I wasn't going to throw him out there and say, run over and talk to our team. I mean, I would love for him to do it. I told him I would love for that at some point in time, but I also want him to feel like he can come and get a piece of football and enjoy himself a little bit and pick his brain for sure as much as I can.
Did you know he was coming today?
You know what? I got a text from him last night that he was going to swing by. I was worried that the weather might scare him away, but obviously he's a true football guy that the weather didn't worry him.
So you never actually asked him to come? You just texted him and just
No, I had texted him when I got the job, and we've kind of texted back and forth, and I say, hey, I'm looking forward to getting together with you. And he said, come down anytime. And I said, hey, anytime you want to come down, come on down. And I actually got a message yesterday that I thought he was going to come by, so I texted him last night, and sure enough, he showed up. So very impressed.
Thank you, guys.
Right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Two quick